is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. I have my good friend Dr. Rick Dina on the show today. Rick has been eating a raw vegan diet for the last 37 years. He's also a doctor of chiropractic. So we're going to share with you guys today the truth about cooked food that they don't tell you. Okay? So first off, actually, the reason for this episode I'm getting together with Dr. Rick today is because we are promoting the 2024 Raw Vegan and Plant-Based Mastery Summit. So Dr. Rick, you want to tell us more about the summit that I participate in every single year?
We do. John always has solid info for him, for us, for the audience. We're always happy to have him. So it's raw food and plant-based. So keeping with the theme of this video, it's not only raw, because raw is the best. And if it's, some chocolate, coconut oil, date, toxic thing that's going to sit like a brick in your stomach, it's good because it's raw. And if it's a steamed vegetables, it's toxic because it's cooked. So it's about healthy versions of all those things with as much fruits and vegetables as possible. So we have a variety of different speakers. We have some people that are like totally raw, and we have some people who are more plant-based, and some people who are more mixed. So it's going to be very, very informative. This is our 9th year in a row doing it. We always have a great turnout, and it's always very informative. You can sign up, you can listen to one interview, you can listen to all of them, you can purchase it so you can listen to it throughout your life. And there's really something there for just about anybody if you're interested in a whole food plant-based diet and you like to eat fruits and vegetables.
I mean, for me personally, what I would say is like every year I tune in to see what other people are saying, because every person has a little bit different area of knowledge. Like I know what I shared, which if you guys watch me, you may know what I'm sharing, but you may not, because I always put in new things. But if you haven't learned from some of the other, speakers, and Rick and Karen vet every single speaker, right? You're not allowed to be in this, summit unless you've been doing this at least 10 years and you have some good credentials behind you and some solid things to say. There's a lot of people on YouTube who just make random videos spouting out things that I believe are untrue and mistruths and misleading people, whereas on the summit you're going to get solid information from solid people doing this for at least 10 years. Many of us have been doing it for many years longer. So You want to check the link down below to sign up today. I want to make sure you guys sign up and reserve your spot now. If you sign up now, you'll be able to listen to the whole summit for free. And of course, if you don't sign up, then you may have to buy the summit later if you want to hear all the information. So Rick, what would somebody miss out on if they didn't sign up right now to, get all the summit information?
Well, we have 2 interviews per day. Each interview is roughly an hour. So if you have that much time, that's great. You can watch them all for free. If you purchase it, you can watch everything as many times as you want. And the 2 interviews last, I forgot, Dr. Karen does most of those logistics with the summit details. They last either for 48 or 72 hours. So you do have a few days to watch each interview.
Wonderful. Yeah, so don't forget, sign up below. You're going to learn a whole lot more than what we're going to share with you guys in this episode.
Yeah, and by the way, so we have people who are solid, who have been on the path a long time, who can impart their wisdom to you and give inspiration. But that's not the only criteria. I mean, part of it is because we want a lot of outreach. So we ask all of our speakers, in John's case, he's making this video with us. Other people put out stuff on social media. They send out emails. So there's some really good people out there who may not necessarily be doing this as a business or something to gain a gathering or to gain a following that are really solid also. But we'll probably have them on other programs in the future. But anyway, but yes, John is correct. All of our people know what they're doing. In our opinions, right, there's different opinions out there. They're rational, they're responsible, they're inspiring, they'll get you motivated, and they just have an enormous amount to share, especially when you take the whole event together.
And that's why I make these videos even to this day, and that's why Dr. Rick and Karen are doing their Mastery Summit as well, to get good information out to the world, because unfortunately there's so much misinformation out there. So,
all right, should we get to it?
Yeah, let's just get to it, Dr. Rick. So, first off, Dr. Rick, is I want to say that, for the longest time, I was like 99.9% raw for most of my raw foods career, and I'd always see Rick eating heat processed food.
90% raw and I still would say maybe I'm up to like 92% now over the 37 years. But yeah, I was the one eating cooked food.
And I'd always razz him so much about it. And now I'm the one that eats more cooked food than him.
4 years and 3 months here about where I've been really close.
More raw than me.
Yeah, no. And there are some exceptions. I mean, I don't call every company that we get sun-dried tomatoes from to make sure, mangoes go through a hot water bath. Not all of them, but most of them. Occasionally I'll lick the spoon when we make our little guy, some soup that includes some steamed zucchini and kale. So I'm way closer to 100% raw than 99% raw, but just let's give the disclaimer here. Let's be fully accurate. Accuracy is important.
And I'm 80 to 90% raw depending on the day. Some days I could be 100%.
There we have it. Full disclosure. All the cards on the table.
All right, Dr. Rick. So what led you to go back to eating all raw? Is cooked food really that bad? You just want to eat all raw or what?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, first of all, being 90% raw on the average, that's, all the cards on the table. A day raw, a week raw, a couple of months raw, throughout that 90% raw time would not be unusual. So but sometimes I, steam some vegetables or some potatoes or whatnot. So what are we? So at the beginning of 2020, like I start out a lot of years, I started out with a juice fast. And I think I did 7 or 14 days, and I was just wanting to keep everything really clean afterwards. I've seen some people go out and juice fast, water fast, do different cleanse programs, and then they binge after I'd done some of that in the long ago in the past in some of my early years, so I just wanted to keep things super clean for a while. And, I noticed it got to be like summer. And I'm like, okay, I'm still being super clean here. The juicing really got me on the right track. Then, fall came around. I'm like, might as well just finish up the year. But I'm looking forward to steaming some vegetables in January. 2021, I did a similar thing, juice fast. And basically I've been doing that. Except this year, I didn't juice fast at the beginning of the year. I'll probably do it in the spring. So it's just been kind of going that way. And sometimes it's interesting, in the fall, it starts getting a little colder, although it doesn't get that cold here in Northern California, and I think, okay, I'm going to steam some vegetables in January, and now that I've been raw a few years, I'm thinking, I wonder how I'm going to feel, what's going to be different. But then I started thinking last year, let me just go 5 years, round it off to 5 years. So I got about 10 months to go now, and so anyway, that's what led to it. But I do notice, I feel extra good, extra clear when I look at some webinars that we've done. So for 9 years now, we have a summit in the spring, and then we make some webinars over the summer to give potential students who might want to join our Mastering Raw Food Nutrition plant-based curriculum. In the fall, we do some webinars over the summer, and I've usually got we have a thumbnail webcam view of us up top, and looking at some of those in previous years before 2020 versus say when I look in the mirror now, I'm like, I actually look more clear and more young. I feel really good. So I'm just keeping going. So that's the story. That's how it turned out.
All right, so I have a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
So of course, we all get to choose how we want to eat based on what is important to us. So Rick feels the greatest when and feels he looks the greatest when he's eating all raw, right? I will say that, hey, I get a little bit more sleepy when I eat heat processed foods, but for me, that's a good thing because now instead of being up like all night amped up and not being able to sleep, I might cook food at night, boom, I'm out cold sleeping, getting the rest I need, which I'm happy with actually. Right. But you could eat for better sleep, you could eat for looking better, you could eat for how you feel, you could eat for how it makes your stomach feel, how it makes your body feel. You could eat for your blood markers. You could eat for your microbiome, And so these days I try to, take all those into consideration and eat how I want to eat for my future health outcome.
And, just going back to and who knows, maybe next year, January or February will come along and I'll think, I'm going year number 6 all raw. I don't think so though. But it's going to be really interesting, and I'm going to discover this myself. It's going to be really interesting to see how I feel, what changes. I mean, is it going to allow me to eat more vegetables? Because I'm going to steam some stuff again, and will I feel better? Will I like it more? Or maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe I won't feel as good. Maybe I'll just go back to being all raw. But the thing is, I don't have any particular dogma or guru who's telling me it has to be this way. I am going to let my personal experience, as well as there's a lot of knowledge behind that as well, but for the most part, I'm going to let my personal experience help me decide what mix I want to be. And that's not only how much raw and how much cooked, but fruits versus vegetables, smoothies, juices, or just not doing those things and having the whole food. And John preaches this, Dr. Karen and I teach this, that, it's important to teach people the principles.
Yeah.
And then we don't give anyone a cookie cutter model of exactly how it has to be. And what that does, I think that's so important, because not every cookie cutter model fits every person perfectly. And sometimes if your friend is a low-fat raw vegan or follows this guru or does that, and they're putting a round peg in a round hole and it's a perfect fit, that's awesome. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily a perfect fit for you or everyone else in the world. Then you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And it might not work. And if it doesn't work, you know what people usually do? They say, oh, I'm going to tune into John, or I'm going to take this class and maybe I'll add some steamed vegetables, or maybe I need a little more fat, or maybe a little less fat, maybe I needed to add some fruit.
Or maybe less fruit.
My guru said wasn't good. Instead of making some tweaks like that,
they just bail.
They bail, and then you know what the number one I think I've seen? I don't know if this is an official statistic, but based on looking around social media, the number one group feeding into the carnivore diet these days?
Fruitarians.
Fruitarians. Seriously, they go too extreme and it doesn't work.
Then they just go more extreme the other way.
They're just extreme thinking. And it's like, the guru said this, I have to do it this way. And so, again, if one model fits great and you're doing great, more power to you. We're not against that. But I am going to let my experience influence how I want to do things. And really, because the goal is to get the most out of your life.
If that's your goal. Some people's goal, like my goal, is to have health and longevity. Some people's goal is just to feel good every day. Everybody has different goals. My goals have to do around health. Some people may not eat raw vegan diet for health. They may eat it for some other reasons, for the animals.
Good reasons. Of course. Like Alyssa says, vegan for the animals, raw for health. That sums it up well. I feel proud of being vegan. I got to say that for sure. I am identify with that. Way lighter footprint on the planet. Not hurting animals. I just feel more spiritually connected. So there's lots of good reasons. And whatever reason is important to you, or whatever mix of reasons, that's what you should be going for.
Absolutely. And I think that for me, on my channel, I try to, like Rick said, give you guys concepts and make you guys think for yourselves, instead of just giving you a cookie cutter model that I've seen over the many years doesn't work. So I encourage you to not follow people that have the cookie cutter model that just put every person through the same program, because this program works for everybody. We are all so uniquely different. We have different microbiomes. We have different ways we digest food. We have so many different things are happening, based on us. So, Dr. Rick, let's go ahead and get into the potatoes of this episode.
We'll skip the meat.
We'll talk about the cooked food. So, Dr. Rick, there's some people out there that basically will say cooked food is the reason for your illness, the reason for why you're sick. Is this true or not, coming from raw vegan doctor?
All right, well, first of all, cooked versus raw is one consideration with your food. Ripe versus stale, or overripe, underripe. How hard is it to digest? There's many considerations there. So to lump all cooked food together, to put donuts and McDonald's French fries or any fast food French fries next to some steamed Brussels sprouts is absurd. It's absolutely absurd to just lump all cooked food together. So I love eating mostly fruits and vegetables, a few nuts and seeds. I would also consider lightly steamed vegetables in the super nutritious, awesome food category. In fact, here's kind of the bottom line. We're talking about individual experiences. I'll give you all a challenge out there. Do this particular mix of all raw for a week. Spend a lot of time mixing dates and coconuts and coconut oil and add lots of chocolate.
But make sure it says raw in the package.
Oh, no, it has to be raw. And just eat that only for a week. See how you feel. See how your experience in life is. And then pick a week, maybe where you go back to whatever you ate the week before, kind of have a washout period. And then pick a week where you eat mostly fruits and vegetables, maybe a few nuts and seeds and some dressings or something if you want, and add 100 calories worth of steamed vegetables a day. And see how you feel at the end of that week. So I'm picking like an extreme, really healthy diet that includes some cooked food versus an extreme, really unhealthy diet that's raw. And I think it's hard to imagine any of you are going to feel better with that raw diet compared to the cooked one. So it's an extreme example to show you can't just make extreme statements and have them apply universally.
Right, and the other thing is, how is the food cooked? So, Dr. Rick, you've been 90% raw overall, for 37 years now.
Yeah.
And so how did you heat process your food? Because I talk about that openly on my channel. I only use an Instant Pot to heat process things. I don't cook any other way.
Of the 10% of cooked food over the years, oh boy, it depends. At the beginning it was different than, say, the last 10 years or so. But let's say in the last 10 years, probably 90% of that cooked food was just steamed. Because it's the cleanest, it's the healthiest.
Yep.
You preserve the most nutrients, you don't damage the food, and it makes it a little softer and whatnot. So, there's a giant difference between steaming and frying. For example, deep frying, or even baking. You lose more nutrients, you form some carcinogenic substances. So exactly, another good reason not to lump all cooked food together.
Yeah, success leaves clues. I would do steaming or Instant Pot. One of the healthiest ways to heat process your food for sure. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. With Instant Pot, some may say it has special properties. It's basically a pressure cooker.
Yeah, pressure cooker.
So you heat the food up 20 degrees-ish more than the boiling point of water, 212/100. But, and all else being equal, the higher the temperature, the more nutrients you lose. But that higher temperature also decreases the cooking time. Because also, in general, all else being equal, the longer you cook something, the more nutrients you lose. So, there may be studies, but I would say, in general, steaming and pressure cooking are pretty darn similar in terms of the quality of food you get out of it. But pressure cooking is faster. There's some value there.
And it's easy because you don't have to make sure things don't boil over and all these things with steaming that I'm not a good cook.
So that is the way to go. In fact, in our class, Mastering Raw Food Nutrition, we encourage people to eat a lot of raw food, but just like here, you don't have to eat only raw food to still be super healthy. So we go through different cooking methods. We look at the research. We also go through juicing and dehydrating and what does the research show about nutrient preservation versus nutrient loss versus the formation of carcinogenic substances, and different cooking methods and different processing methods have different results. And it's good to know what those things are. Okay, if you deep fry, ice cream or something like that, that is hugely different than some steamed squash.
So, Dr. Rick, what are the worst ways of cooking that actually cause carcinogens and can cause problems?
Yeah, the high temperature cooking methods, baking, broiling, roasting, frying.
I do not advocate those.
No, we don't either.
Both of us don't.
But it depends what you compare it to. If you go to have a fast food French fry, or you cut up some potatoes and cook them in a convection oven at home, the convection oven's way better. But steaming those same potatoes is clearly better than that. So if you're new to this, don't lock yourself in jail and make it so hard that you give up.
Yeah, just steam some stuff or buy an Instant Pot.
Yeah.
And air frying is the same thing as just, cooking in a convection oven, in my opinion, because it's hot, really hot without the water.
Yeah.
And although air fryers are said to be healthier, than frying,
Well, it's better than frying, better than roasting or
but
broiling,
not better than
probably.
steaming.
Yeah, because you get some of the crispiness from the air.
Exactly, and then that
heat.
causes the carcinogens and toxins.
It does do some of that.
Yes.
Some. But again, the more you heat and at higher temperatures,
the worse
there's actually an exponential increase in carcinogenic substance formation with increased time and temperature.
So that we would both agree upon, like basically, you want to use something like a steamer or pressure cooker, maybe even boiling, something with water so you're keeping the temperature, below, 248, 240.
It's interesting with boiling. So with boiling, you're keeping the temperature low, which avoids the formation of carcinogens. But yeah, two issues is that you lose more nutrients. First of all, you leach some of it into the water. And if you use that water for soup or something else, you can get most of the mineral content back. But you lose a lot of the vitamins. You lose more vitamins with boiling compared to steaming, even if you reuse the water. Yeah. But anyway, that's compared to steaming.
Right.
Right? If we saw a whole spectrum.
And every different food item is a little bit different, depending.
Yeah, it's true. So steaming's up here,
blanket.
Boiling's not quite as good. This is healthfulness, baking, roasting, frying, broiling. So boiling, we're not saying boiling food makes it poisonous. It's just not quite as good as pressure cooking or steaming.
Link down below where I have my whole spectrum, or I call it a continuum of heat processed food from best to worst. And I go over it in detail in that video, so we won't rehash that. So Dr. Rick, we talked about the ways to heat process food the best, but now let's talk about the best foods to heat process, right?
Well,
so what are the best?
I don't think either you or I are advocates of cooking fruit. Fruit's pretty incredible on its own.
Yeah,
there's no need to cook it.
Wouldn't really cook fruit.
It's easy to digest. Vegetables are where it gets challenging. Because vegetables, a full stomach of vegetables on average just has like a couple hundred, 200 or 300 calories maybe if you stuff yourself full of vegetables. Like I can only eat so much raw broccoli. In fact, I don't even really like it. But you
like raw cauliflower.
I love raw cauliflower, but I love steamed cauliflower too. So I don't really like eating raw broccoli. It's just chalky and not that good. I don't like eating raw Brussels sprouts. I love both of those steamed. So if steaming, by softening up the fiber a bit, allows you to eat more vegetables, almost across the board, I would say you have come out ahead by steaming vegetables. I personally, on average, eat about 3.5 pounds of raw vegetables per day. I know some people eat more than that, but I eat about a pound of cauliflower, a pound of lettuce, a pound of zucchini in a typical day. It's not enough variety for John. And then we've got either a tomato or a celery-based dressing with another 0.5 pound in the dressing. But it's going to be interesting to see when I add some cooked food back. Maybe that'll get me up to 5 pounds of vegetables per day. Maybe that'll increase some probiotic bacteria that's good for me that I'm not getting now. Maybe that'll just increase my nutrient intake and I'll feel better from eating more vegetables. I don't know, but I think for the most part, vegetables are the most important thing to consider to get more of that light cooking, light heat processing can help with. And then if you eat a few starches, I don't choose to do that much. I used to make like potatoes and cauliflower and mush a little avocado and add a little curry powder and a little pinch of sea salt to that instead of going to an Indian restaurant and having their, total ton of salt, oil, super spicy version. We'd make that at home. But, I would feel tired after that. I don't think I'm going to eat stuff that dense again. Well, my point is, if you want to eat a few starches, if that sounds appealing to you and you feel good after that, that's not so unreasonable either. Especially if it prevents you from eating things that are more cooked and processed at higher temperatures, like bread. Even though not all bread's so terrible, I would have a cooked potato over bread, generally speaking. So starches aren't so terrible to include either. In fact, lots of people have gone from conventional diets to almost all cooked diets, starch-centered diets, and they've reversed type 2 diabetes, they've reversed hypertension, they've lost 100 pounds, they've gotten off all of their medications and the side effects. I mean, enormously good things can happen. We just think it's better if you include even more fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, I mean, I don't ignore starch or try to not eat it. I mean, I openly will eat steamed purple potatoes and purple sweet potatoes and other starchy foods because I think they're beneficial. Now, do I pig out on them? Would I rather eat like fresh persimmons that are ripe and raw or like a steamed purple potato? Like, I'll enjoy the persimmons a lot more than I will the sweet potato, but I eat the sweet potato like, oh, this is good for variety, and it's kind of cool to like get different flavor sensations and textures and whatnot. So, Dr. Rick, you mentioned heating your vegetables, but like I also heat process beans and grains, and mushrooms. I mean, and some of these foods, like some beans you could sprout and eat raw, some grains you could sprout and eat raw. Mushrooms, you could maybe eat them raw, but like, what are your thoughts on beans, grains, and mushrooms and heat processing versus raw?
It's a really extensive topic. So beans, yeah, I mean, I like lentil sprouts. I like garbanzo bean sprouts. They have to sprout quite a bit. If you eat too many of those, they have some enzyme inhibitors that don't digest well. For a lot of people out there, steamed or boiled chickpeas would actually digest more easily than raw sprouted ones.
Yep.
I happen to like them raw and sprouted. I think lentils are incredible when they're sprouted. We like sprouting some adzuki beans and mung beans from time to time. But you can't eat all raw or sprouted beans. Some of them are like super toxic.
Could kill you.
They'll clump your blood together. They're really, really bad. I mean, we go to details about that in our curriculum. So I suppose you could argue that by cooking, you can have a greater variety of beans. And if you like beans, I mean, we should really mention kind of the elephant in the room. At least half the battle with diet is getting rid of the things that are really harmful.
The junk.
What's really harmful? Foods that lack fiber, foods that are loaded with saturated fat, loaded with cholesterol, are nutrient poor, take a ton of digestive energy and wear you out. Beans don't do that for most people, although I feel better not eating as many of them or just keeping them sprouted. But anyway, if you enjoy them, I'm not going to tell anyone not to eat some some cooked chickpeas or lentils or black beans or kidney beans or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, to me, beans are so important for like the nutrition and especially the fiber. Like the fiber is huge, and just as a filler, so that I could eat a little bit less fruit and not eat as. I mean, I've been eating so many vegetables, like it gives me diversity, and that's what I really love. Just the texture is a little bit different. Also, I feel like a little more satiated when I eat beans, than with vegetables.
And so here's a good point. John and I have a different view on beans, right? He likes them more. We're still friends. It's still okay. Right? Sometimes it's like if someone eats something that someone else doesn't approve of, oh my God, they're not friends anymore. It's ridiculous. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, there's a lot of science on the beans, and I'm going to go with it. So, grains, Dr. Rick.
Yeah, grains. There's many types of grains you can sprout. And
I know.
That way, if you want. You can sprout quinoa. You can sprout wheat, rye, various things. Dr. Karen knows more about that than I do. That's more her specialty in our class. But I mean, I prefer things raw and sprouted overcooked, but I'm not going to tell anyone they're wrong for eating some cooked quinoa or making some brown rice. It just depends how you feel. It depends what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that these are very important foods for us to once again have a diversity. For breakfast, some days I'll do sprouted oatmeal. And then some days I'll actually heat process quinoa and different kinds of grains, einkorn or, oats or buckwheat. To me, I've been enjoying that because I find that if I eat, like in the olden days, I'd eat a fruit meal in the morning. A couple hours later, I feel like, oh man, I got to eat again. I'm hungry. But when I eat like my grain bowl, of course it has fresh fruit in it, mixed in it. I'll be good for like 4 hours and I like won't even need to eat. So like for me, that's really huge, and also has less of a blood sugar impact than just eating, fruit, because I'm now getting lots of more fiber.
Yeah, and all of these foods compared to animal foods and processed foods, they're high in fiber, they're nutrient dense, they don't have a bunch of saturated fat and cholesterol and preservatives, and you're either raw or low temperature cooking, you're not forming carcinogenic substances. They reverse artery disease, like Drs. Ornish and Esselstyn have shown. It's really hard to go wrong if you're whole food plant-based.
And what are your thoughts on mushroom, Dr. Rick?
Oh, mushrooms. I don't know a real lot about those. Back when I was 90% raw and I'd cook some dishes with some mushrooms and some brown rice and some beans in there, and the mushrooms would get soft and make like a gravy. Delicious. And I know you can eat some mushrooms raw, but not all. Some are really unhealthy. So I don't know. I'm not a mushroom expert. But I'll tell you what, if you're starting out and you used to love your gravy and your mashed potatoes and your roast beef, and you miss gravy, oh man, cooked mushrooms are so gravy-like in a lot of ways. And if that gets you pouring it over steamed vegetables or brown rice
or even raw vegetables, you could cook
or raw vegetables.
Cook your mushrooms, make a dressing out of it, and eat it over raw vegetables.
Exactly. So in any of those circumstances, I am all for cooked mushrooms. And maybe I'll add some of those back when I start eating some cooked food again. See if I like them. See how I feel. Do some testing. See if they serve me well or not. And, there's lots of options out there for everybody.
Yeah, and mushrooms are just a host of different micronutrients. And fibers, the chitin fiber, super good. There's lots of research on the mushrooms. I highly advocate for you guys to include some mushrooms in some way that you feel comfortable with. I just put them in an Instant Pot these days when I steam with my vegetables for like about 4 minutes. And I always get different kinds of mushrooms from different Asian markets, shiitakes, maitakes, browns and whites, all the different buttons and enokis. Yeah, there's so many beech, all kinds of mushrooms. Anyways, so Dr. Rick, we want to kind of get to the summary of this episode.
Yep.
We're both going to agree on this cooked food is completely toxic, completely bad. We should never eat it. Is ultra-processed cooked food. We both agree with that. Things in packages, bottles, and jars have been ultra-processed, made in a factory, added sugar, flour, salt, and oil.
Yeah, I mean, if it comes in a package and it's a relatively whole food and you haven't done much to it, that might be okay. Just the package alone doesn't. But yes, when you've refined foods, you've taken away the fiber, the water, the nutrients, and it's just empty calories. None of those things sound good. That's what 99% of most people eat.
Yeah, fast food.
Yeah, so that stuff's just not so good.
And that is the cooked food that actually, is bad, but there could be, as we discussed in this whole episode, there is healthier heat processed foods. Once again, to sum it up, steam it or pressure cook it. And number 2, you want to focus on things like vegetables, especially leafy green vegetables, other vegetables, maybe some starchy vegetables, maybe some beans, some grains, and some mushrooms.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can still get such tremendous value out of steamed vegetables. They're still a good source of omega-3s, whereas if you heat them up at higher temperatures, the omega-3s can tend to degrade, but steaming doesn't. They're still going to help produce nitric oxide in your body and help your blood vessels and lower your blood pressure and get more blood flow everywhere in your body. They're still going to provide tons of minerals, tons of phytonutrients, tons of antioxidants. I mean, steamed vegetables rock. They're
so like
phenomenal.
you would probably say steamed vegetables are probably the healthiest heat processed food you could eat?
Probably, on the whole. And I would eat a steamed vegetables any day before I ate most like raw gourmet dessert type things.
Like a chocolate cheesecake with coconut oil and cashews and dates.
Yes, I personally would. Now, on our summit, we do have someone making some raw desserts like that. And if you're looking at a regular chocolate cake made out of white flour and oil and eggs and sugar and that kind of thing, and you can make one that tastes just as good or better out of dates and chocolate or carob powder and some walnuts and some other things, that's way better. But I would say steamed vegetables are several orders of magnitude better yet. But if those chocolate things keep you on the path and make you not give up and become a carnivore or go ketogenic or something like that, then it's served you well. But don't make a whole meal of it. Have it for dessert after your steamed vegetables and your salad.
And hopefully not every night either.
No, hopefully not every night. Or like the person making it on day one of our, it's actually Chef AJ, I got her list here of our summit. She makes a super good point. She's like, look, if you're raw or you're whole food plant-based, not most of your friends and family are.
Yeah.
So if you can invite them over and talk about the things you have in common, and you can make them a chocolate cake out of dates and walnuts.
And they love it.
And they love it, and everyone enjoys, and maybe they'll even have a few of your steamed vegetables or whatever. You're enhancing the quality of your life, because the socialization and the connection is another important. So here's kind of one thing. Raw versus cooked is one issue in nutrition. Nutrition is one issue in your overall health. Don't stay home alone every night being frustrated and lonely, but all raw. So anyway, the social part can come in there as well. But steamed vegetables are healthier than the gourmet raw stuff. So, but we got to take everything into account when you make your decisions.
All right, Dr. Rick, so I got a few burning questions, like white elephant in the room here. So, steamed vegetables contains 0 enzymes, right? Because it's been heat processed. We lose the enzymes, so it's no longer raw. Does that make it instantly bad? And also discuss like the leukocytosis. Does all cooked food cause leukocytosis like I was taught originally?
All right, so digestive leukocytosis means your white blood cell count increases after you eat. And it used to be thought that was just normal. And this guy, Paul Kauchikoff, or whatever it was, 100 years ago, discovered that doesn't happen when you eat a raw meal. But then they've also found out if your food isn't heated very high, isn't heated too much, or you eat some cooked food and a lot of raw food, you also do not get that increase in white blood cell count. That's what leukocytosis is, an increase in white blood cell count. Now, generally speaking, unless you have something like AIDS or where your immune system is just shot, that's an exception. But generally speaking, a lower white blood cell count is healthier. We're all trained in medical school, chiropractic, naturopathic school, whatever, that when you see someone with an elevated white blood cell count, that's not good. Oh, they have a strong immune system. That means your white blood cell count went up because it's counteracting something toxic coming in. So I've analyzed the lab work of several hundred raw vegans and healthy cooked vegans. And what I see across the board, and I don't see a distinction. Now this isn't right after the meal. This is when they go to the lab usually in the morning before eating. But if something's so toxic, your white blood cell count's going to stay up high. I see across the board people's white blood cell count near the lower end of the reference range, even if they include some cooked food in their diet. And really, if there was like a big difference, like all the cooked food people had white blood cell counts that were elevated or middle range, and all raw food people were a couple of points lower, 4 to 10 is the average in general approximate reference range for various labs, I would have seen it. Several hundred people, and it wasn't just I looked through quickly, where I'm sitting down in an individual consultation where we've got an hour to go over their lab work and talk about their diet, talk about improvements they could make. So I do not subscribe to this idea that all cooked food is toxic because it raises your white blood cell count, and that's a bad sign. I don't think there's substantiation for that claim.
And the enzymes.
Enzymes are important. They do give our body a head start in digestion, but you could eat an enzymeless diet, all cooked food, if it's high in fiber, high in nutrients, anti-inflammatory, etc., which a lot of healthy cooked foods are, and you can, even without enzymes in your food, you can have more energy, you can lose weight, you can decrease inflammation, you can reverse type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, recover from strokes. I mean, so many good things can happen. So I do believe that enzymes do give our body a head start in digestion when the enzymes are in the food. Now, on the other side, the anti-raw people will say things like, all enzymes are destroyed in your stomach acid. And there is something to that. But the key word here is, that I didn't say, I'll state it again and I'll add the key word. All enzymes are eventually destroyed by your stomach acid when they come in from the food. But when you're chewing it in your mouth, when it's going down, when it's a big bolus in your stomach, the enzymes are getting destroyed by the hydrochloric acid on the outside of the bolus. It takes a while before it gets to the inside. And in the meantime, your body has a head start in digestion. That could explain, partially at least, why so many people have so much energy when they eat more raw food and they feel so good. But you can still feel excellent if all of your food doesn't have enzymes. It's not like you're going to keel over if you have a steamed potato and some steamed cauliflower like I used to do in the evening a couple nights a week if the rest of your diet's all raw. It's like they're not the magic thing in a raw food diet. Lots of other considerations.
All right, Dr. Rick, thank you for that. So what I would say is this, I would encourage you to, if you are going to include some heat processed foods, to eat it with your raw food. So have 90% big raw salad, few cut up potatoes or extra steamed greens or broccoli on there, because you're not eating the broccoli raw because you don't like broccoli raw unless it's out of your garden fresh and it's so tender and delicious you wouldn't want to even cook it. So that's what I'd say. I would say that, find the path that works for you. Don't be scared of all cooked foods. You should be scared of ultra processed foods, things in packages, balls, and jars. But steaming some vegetables compared to eating some, chocolate raw vegan cheesecake, right? Or in gnats. I love gnats. You could get them at Sprouts. It's like these little raw food desserts that are like basically raw vegan cheesecakes. Steamed vegetables, man, for the win. Get more vegetables in you. That's my focus these days. Get more vegetables in me. So, Dr. Rick, we're here at the end of the episode. Any final words of wisdom you'd like to share with everybody before we sign off?
Yeah, if this, look at the evidence, see what really works, in our, John and I's opinion, rational perspective on nutrition and health appeals to you, definitely invite you all to our summit. We have a variety of different speakers. Some of them are just blatantly starch-based, Dr. Greg or Dr. Barnard. Other people have been 100% raw for decades. And we have a mix of different speakers, but they're all coming from a perspective of encouraging people to find what works for them. And we just have a wealth of like 22 different speakers. If Dr. Karen and I each give a presentation ourselves, it'll be 24 different speakers. And, you don't have to just watch what you want. It's hard to imagine any of you wouldn't get a great deal of value from these interviews.
Yeah, I totally agree. You want to sign up with the link down below before it is too late so you can get included in this year's summit. I always watch all the different summit episodes to see what I can glean. If I'm learning something from it, I know a lot of you guys that haven't been doing it for that long will learn a lot more. So definitely recommend check that link out down below. And more importantly, if you guys enjoyed this episode with Dr. Rick, want more episodes with Dr. Rick, we don't do videos near enough as I'd like. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, and more importantly, share this with other people in the raw foods and even plant-based communities so that they can learn about the benefits of eating more properly heat processed and of course raw fruits and vegetables that can benefit your health. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss my new upcoming episodes. I'll be coming every 5 to 7 days. You never know where our show up or we'll be learning on my YouTube channel. Make sure you click the little bells to get notified as my videos come out. And finally, be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 800 episodes, guys, on this channel. Teach you guys all about eating a fruit and vegetable dominated healthy diet. So with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time. And until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.